Hey, what's up, guys? I saw that Bernie Sanders said something that was really interesting about black people and the police. There was a black college student who was speaking at an HBCU, and the student basically said, if you were my son, or if I were your son, what would you tell me to do when it came to encountering the police? And one of the things that Bernie said was basically, among other things, he said, I would encourage you to respect the officer doing his duty so that you don't get shot in the back of the head. And this set a lot of people off, rightfully so. He said some other things, but after you say something like that, it's kind of hard to come back from that. There's not much else that people are going to hear from you. And I think that people are right to kind of be annoyed by that statement. Now, for white people and those who don't understand why this statement is a problem, what you got to really sort of sit back and really do is sort of look at this. What he's basically saying is, that police officers are typically right, that police officers are abiding by a system that is beyond reproach, that basically the system within which they operate, the training that they're given, as long as they follow that training and as long as they follow that system, they're doing everything right. And therefore, if you deviate, if you do not respect the officer's right to move forward in that problematic and corrupt and racist system, then you deserve to be shot in the back of the head. If you get shot in the back of the head because you were disruptive, it is all your fault. It is not their fault. It's not the officer's fault. It's not the system's fault. It's your fault because the system was there. The officer was executing the system and you were supposed to follow that protocol because the system cannot be questioned. What's interesting is that, first of all, I compare that to a statement that Killer Mike made at the All Black National Convention not too long ago. What Mike said was interesting. He said that he would encourage his son to survive the encounter, and then we'll go deal with the situation. Then we'll go deal with the officer, survive the encounter. Black people cheered when he made that statement. Now, what's interesting is that statement differed with Killer Mike and Bernie Sanders for a couple of reasons. One, because Killer Mike has more of a connection to the black community, so he has a little bit more trust and a little more leeway to say certain things. But then two, I think that Mike's argument, I'm hopeful, would leave room for something that Bernie's argument does not include, which is a questioning of this fundamental idea that says that policing in America is done the right way, that police protocol is the right protocol, that the system is the right system, that the system is always doing what it's supposed to do, and is supposed to protect and all these other things and serve. But we know it doesn't serve and protect. It actually protects white from black. It protects rich people from poor people, right? And so effectively, when Bernie Sanders makes that statement, what I was hearing in terms of why it was a problematic statement to make is that Bernie is one of those white liberals, unfortunately, who sees police shootings as a one-off. He sees police shootings as, okay, that was one bad apple. The rest of the bunch is fine. He sees it as, okay, that was this officer right here. That was not the entire system itself. Whereas I think those who are more enlightened about what's going on are seeing the entire system. They're seeing policing in terms of how it's done. They're asking, why is it that an officer has to pull out a goddamn gun because you were jaywalking? Why he got to pull out his gun because you're just talking to each other? Why does that confrontation have to occur in the first place? Why are they stopping black people more than they're stopping white people? I was at Syracuse University for 13 years as a faculty member, and I can tell you, if they had done dorm raids on that campus every weekend, they would have put thousands of white kids in prison every single year because they had all kinds of drugs, were engaged in all kinds of illegal activity, and nobody saw it because the police were not even engaging them. The police were not even around, right? So my question is, why are the cops even around? If you're not hurting somebody, if you're not a rapist, a murderer, or kidnapping somebody, beating somebody's ass, then why are the cops even around? Why did a Tatiana Jefferson get shot when she wasn't doing nothing wrong? What business did you even have to be in her house, near her, in her family at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning? You had no business being there. You shouldn't have been there. If she were white, you wouldn't have been there. You wouldn't have been in her backyard. You wouldn't have been bothering her like that. You wouldn't have had a gun pointed through her window at 3 o'clock in the morning looking like a murderous predator that you actually ended up becoming. So I think that this is the reason Bernie Sanders comment. I had to think about this and say, why does this bother me? Why does this bother me? Because I don't want nobody to get shot in the back of the head. I think it's okay to respect police officers. My dad was a cop. I've always respected cops. But the problem with that, though, is that when Bernie Sanders makes a statement like that, it reeks of white supremacy, because what the white supremacist liberal allies unfortunately end up telling black people is, We got this. You know, these things you're complaining about, we'll fix them within the context of our pre-existing system. We'll fix them within the context of our pre-existing protocol and expectation that we are the ones in charge and you all are pretty much subjected to whatever we decide to do. We're going to fall for this false belief that the way we do policing in America is fine, that the systems that we have in place are fine, that the officers, for the most part, are good, and that that there's no reason for black people to ever think these crazy radical ideas like we should be policing our own neighborhoods. You see, white people get to police their own neighborhoods. It's rare that you have a bunch of black cops from the hood, a whole gang of 7 or 8 of them going through a white neighborhood, beating old, rich white women upside the head. That ain't going to happen. That's not going to happen. That would be weird and rare. It's probably never happened in the history of this country. So given that there's never been a time in the history of this country where a gang of 7 or 8 black police officers from a black neighborhood were able to go into a white community and beat the hell out of or shoot a white lady or whatever for no reason when she was jaywalking or sitting up at 3 a.m. playing video games with her nephew. Why is it that this kind of thing has happened so often in black communities? Why the disparity? Why the disparity? If you want to understand this point in a nutshell, take these situations and reverse the race. You make the white people black and the black people white and ask yourself, if the black person were white and the white person were black, would this have even happened? And I think that you'll get a lot of your answers that way. And you'll also come to a point where you can ask questions that the Democratic Party and the Republican parties are not equipped to answer. So I think that's why Bernie Sanders' question was a problem. It doesn't mean you don't cooperate with police. It doesn't mean that you want to be disruptive. It doesn't mean that there aren't cops who might try to do the right thing. The problem is not so much the individual cops. Stop letting them make you think it's a one-off. The problem is the system. It's an entire system built on police methods that are nothing less than freaking fucking warfare. You're occupying entire communities the way you occupy Iraq and Afghanistan, and people are getting shot because you're coming in there guns blazing, ready to shoot somebody up because they said a couple words to you. You're ready to throw them, body slam them on the ground, put their face in the ground. 15-year-old girls who are not a threat to anybody. What's fascinating to me is that they don't even distinguish between who's a threat and who's not a threat. In their mind, you're a threat if you don't do what the fuck I say. So basically, if you're not doing what I tell you to do, then I can define you as a threat. It doesn't matter if you're an 80-year-old woman on a walker. I can still define you as a threat, when the reality is that we need to come back and say, why do you see that person as a threat? Why did you need a gun on that 14-year-old girl? Like, you didn't need all of that. Like, why did you go to that point? And when Bernie Sanders and people like that don't question these fundamental assumptions, then you're always going to come to the wrong conclusions. Look, I'm a mathematician. Like, I taught math, at the University of Kentucky, and I can tell you that if you start a math problem and you start with the wrong assumptions, you're always going to come to the wrong conclusion. So what I'm saying is we got to make different assumptions so we can make the right conclusions. And the right assumption is that white people from the suburbs should not be policing black neighborhoods anyway. The assumption is that white people, these cops need to stop pulling over black people more than they're pulling over everybody else. The assumption is you need to stop fucking with us and we won't have an issue, right? Nothing can pop off because nothing's going to happen because we're not even talking that day because you let me go by the same way you let the white guy go by with a pocket full of crystal meth. So that's my 2 cents on it. I'm about to go, guys. Hit the thumbs up button, share and subscribe button. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins. Follow me on Instagram, The Real Boyce Watkins. Feel free to do that. I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Peace.